the more and more that we're doing like these episodes where it looks scandalous like this, it just makes me think I should always rock like 80s fashion.
Yeah.
Like always just...
All the 80s like style times that we've had.
Yeah.
You look great.
I
absolutely fantastic.
My hair needs to be the worst. Hi, I'm Philadelphia.
And I'm San Diego.
And we're the Ghouls Next Door.
Yeah, because that's where I was born.
Yeah, that's good.
I
could have been Boston.
I got very panicked because I was like, I don't know where do I say I am?
You're also Philadelphia.
Okay, well.
I mean, no, it could be whatever.
We did what we did.
This is where I was born again, so it counts because I would have actually been Boston. But she wasn't named after where she was born.
Mm-hmm.
She said they wanted me to have an American name. And what's more American than Detroit?
Yeah, that's pretty real.
You know?
Yeah.
And also, what's more American than Philadelphia, the birthplace of this nation? So it's good.
Yeah, it works. I am also Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's good.
It's fine. That's what happened the first time. We don't gotta talk about it.
Yeah. Well, this episode, we are talking about Sorry to Bother You by Boots Riley.
Yeah, so we're sorry to bother you, but we're going to talk about some stuff.
Sorry to bother you.
That might make you kind of uncomfortable.
But please listen to this episode.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we got to put on our public service voice.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kat. Thank you for calling the Ghouls Next Door.
Yeah, I have that from my years of being a hostess.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, hi, thank you for calling. I was like, please hold. Why we connect you to this proper services, whatever.
Yeah, it's a persona. It's the whole thing. Yeah.
I get it. I think it's really funny because I could be like yelling at work. Like I could be like really upset. I could be like, I hate this thing that's happening, or I'm so mad, and the phone rings like, hi, thank you for calling Philly Cam. This is Gabe speaking. How can I help you? Mm-hmm. It's like, who is that? Who was that person? Yeah. Where did she come from? And why did she promptly leave as soon as I hang up? It's great. This is a great film. I do
for many reasons. Yes. There's so many reasons, and we only have so much time. So
I think we want to specify that we're really only going to dive into like 2 of the many themes in this film. There's a lot that's going on, and so I think we will probably like address this film later, and this is something like I wanted to do this film during our Horrors of Society.
Yes,
because I wanted to talk about human labor as slavery, and how like capitalism does that, and how like our prison industrial complex does that. And so we will be diving in a little bit of that, but it's not quite to the extent like I wanted it just to be about Worry Free. But you can also specifically talk about media too. You can talk about the abuse show that's on there. You can talk about like
so many things.
Yeah.
And it's like all of them are the things that need to be said.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to like pick the thing we're gonna say today.
But we are, because kind of going into our social horror episode, so it is, I guess, the more satirical, kind of it is comedic, but I think the themes and eventually like I am adamant not to spoil some of the things because I think it's such a genuine
good to know
response. Like I think it's kind of crazy that I watched the film pretty late because this came out in 2018. I had not been spoiled about that big spoil. Like, were you spoiled about the big spoiler?
No.
Right? So
everyone just kept telling me they needed to see my face when we saw it. And I was like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So I want other people to do that. Like, I don't want to take that from anyone. So if you watched it, you know what we're talking about. But I don't want to, like, spoil that.
Yeah.
But there are things in this film that are horrific and would be very well a horror film. So I would say it is a social horror for a lot of reasons, but it's also like social commentary, which is why it fits into what we're talking about in this episode. Yeah.
I think it also goes into our horror while black.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Especially because, like, you know, some things we're going to talk about is code switching. We're going to talk about capitalism. We're going to talk about the prison industrial complex. And all of those things directly affect communities of color proportionally more than white people. So, not to say that white people don't have similar experiences or like that we, even just like brown people like myself, have similar experiences and have had to code switch or have their own language or are also like suffering from these same groups of power who try to control us. Like, we're in there too, but it does happen to be predominantly black communities and black people who are suffering from these things the most. So I think it definitely falls into our horror while black. Because, like you know, what we've said, oftentimes real life is more horrific than what you're going to find on film. And so to black people, this is a horror film too, right? Like, to anyone who can read between the lines. And not even, it's
pretty blunt.
It's in your face.
Yeah.
It's so
like
fun.
As we've been saying, it's like there are things that are behind, like very, like, not, it's still very in your face, but are like background to the events taking place that are, like, I guess you could say, is subtle. But yeah, it's very in your face. It's a very in your face film. There's
plenty of monologues throughout the film that are just like, here is what I'm trying to tell you. This is about Africa and how the first symbol of capitalism is taking slave labor from Africa and using it here in America. And it's like drowned out. We're not like, but it's like, that's if you're listening and paying attention, it's
doing it on purpose. It was made that way on purpose.
Because we're, as viewers, drowning out that knowledge all the time. Like, as humans, we drown out the realities of the situation.
Especially when given the means to be a pedestal above financially others.
Yeah.
We're just like, oh, but it'd be real inconvenient to acknowledge that's a thing. So I'd have to stop doing the thing that I really want to do.
It can't be my fault. It can't be the middle class's fault.
I really just want this thing. It's really convenient.
Yeah.
I just need it.
That's America right there. I want this thing. I need it, so shh.
I need it to stop.
Don't tell me about it.
Don't tell me about it, because then I have to feel bad. And then it's like, fine, I'll feel bad. I'm going to performatively feel bad for like a minute so that people don't cancel me on Twitter. But then I'm super just not going to feel bad later when everything, like,
it's quiet again.
Yeah, normal. Let's go back to normal, guys. Oh my gosh.
Let's make America great again. Because it was great once.
Oh god, that was scary.
Most of them.
The little skit we just did was scary.
Yeah, that's real.
Because it's very real.
We should make our own film.
Let's make some films.
So, Kat, tell us what Sorry to Bother You is about.
Yeah, I got you. I didn't scroll down.
I'm sorry.
What's up? So, Sorry to Bother You is a film by Boots Riley that came out in 2018. To summarize from IMDb, in an alternate present-day version of Oakland, telemarketer Cassius Green discovers a magical key to professional success, propelling him into a universe of greed.
Yeah, that's a very simple way to say what happens.
I just feel like, that's what Wikipedia and IMDb are, the themes. There's like, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to tell it. It's hard to say what it is.
You don't want to spoil it either.
Yeah.
It's like...
Because, so what you have a man whose name is Cassius Green. And...
Cash is great.
It is. It is played by Lakeith Stanfield, who I'm a great fan of. I love everything he's in. I've never been disappointed. And he does a phenomenal job here. Just like he's done in Atlanta or Get Out or like any number of things that he finds himself in. And I'd say so right from the start, I think one of the most amazing things that only someone with Boots Riley's brain, right? Because he's very artistic. He's a musician, and his band, The Coup, is the soundtrack is all them.
Oh wow,
and
that's really cool.
Yeah, he has very interesting song names, and he's just a very artistic-minded person, and so that comes through the film in a very unique way. Like there are things in this film that like the cinematography and also like the practical effects add to the film as a whole. Like there's so much messaging that's happening in the dialogue, in the colors, right, in the names, in the circumstances, in the weird way that the world moves around them, and all of it contributes to the story that he's trying to tell, and it's so phenomenal. Like, but practical effects, I'm such a sucker for those. Like, one of the biggest reasons I ever wanted to get into filmmaking was after watching a documentary about Peter Jackson in Lord of the Rings, and all the different like the ways that they would use practical effects in order to get these certain looks. So like the fact that Gandalf looks much larger than the hobbits, it's just because of the way that they position them. In like they had to build the carriage that they're on so that the seats are separated so that they have the perception looks like he's much bigger. And I was like, that is the coolest thing in the world. I was like, that is so phenomenal to think like how you can manipulate the world and then you use the camera to like convey this idea. And I was like, that's like the greatest blend between like the left and right brain, because you have something that's so artistic, but then you also have something that's so scientific. Like you have something where your like math is involved. And so I think this does a really good job of kind of wielding both of those worlds together. It's
I agree.
All these practical things and cinematography, but then also this beautiful like artistic way that we're kind of learning and experiencing the world. Just phenomenal.
The flow of it, honestly, is very like, I would say honestly, like musical, in that like it just keeps kind of connecting into each part, even if what's happening is like absurd, is what you're like seeing, but it like does, even if it feels like it purposely disjointed enough that it makes sense, and that like it would be like how I imagine, like, not exactly, but how Childish Gambino's This Is America video shot, where like so much is happening that everything like is chaos, but it leads perfectly into each other part that's happening. And
yeah. Cool. Yeah. And I think the disjointed cinematography and the way that the world collapses and moves and that things aren't ever static or like or conventional really helps to tell this story to the degree that it needs to be, because like you believe the absurdity of it because everything is absurd. Like the whole, like you're just like, oh, that's just this world that we live in. Here's the thing I really loved about it was, and then we can get into like the actual themes, right? But is that the characters react like real people. So like they react like as if we were in that world and things are acting weird. So they do like react to stuff where they're like, what? Wait, how? What am I doing? But at the same time, still rolling with it. And so like, it's like, you know, he gets dropped into the living room and he's just like, what? Like, I'm in here. And then he's just like, sorry to bother you. Can I, you know, offer you the magazine subscription? And then they're like having sex on the couch. And it's just like he's like they say things where they're like, that's not right. Or that's weird. Like, this is the television. Like they all react the way I feel like people would react. And then also react the same way in that they just keep going and they're just accept it as reality.
Yeah, it's just very like adaptive, like kind of how the human brain is when it's dealing with so much all at once. Is like, all right, we got to do whatever we can to make this feel okay. Yeah. And then you just keep going.
Normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a coping mechanism. It's also cool that he's just like, as like when you're calling someone, if you think like telemarketing, you're trying to like sell someone something, most of the time in inopportune moments. Yeah. So the fact that he's just like plopping into the room while they're having sex, or like plopping in to like while the guy's sleeping, is early on the toilet.
Well, that's the thing I think is really interesting, is that when he's on the first floor, when he is just a normal telemarketer, he calls and he interrupts people, and he's very out of his, like, he's out of it, right? He, like, talks to the woman whose husband has cancer. He gets hung up on at the dinner table. He interrupts in the sex, right? And so he's very clearly an outsider in that moment. And he's getting put into these really odd situations that are uncomfortable. But as soon as he becomes a PC power caller, he has that scene where he's plopped in front of the man who is using the toilet, but he is intimate with this man. He is close. Like, he's no longer at his desk separated from the action. There. He's in it, and he pushes the button for the bidet because he is there. He's in it. Yeah. And I think that's such a, like, even that itself, like, we're keeping the same conventions. We're seeing the same film tactics, except now we see, like, the physical transition of his growth as a telemarketer and salesman, that he has now gotten to their level, and he's using the white voice and he's doing all that, and so he can only achieve that that level of intimacy when he did that, when he kind of sold out to and that like world.
The intro, he feels bad about intruding, and the other one, he feels like he's
there,
right to be there. Yeah. Come on, let's go.
Yeah,
I'm in this space.
Yeah.
What a time.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're talking themes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you take it away, ma'am.
Oh, dear God. No, I'm kidding. No, it's cool. It's cool. So it's just really interesting, a lot of the things that are happening. So we're going to be talking about code switching and basically how for people of color and, you know, in terms of a classist system, we have that it's taken from just like you have to go from one thing to another in life to a form of survival. Like, it's not so much a choice. It's literally like, if you cannot exist as yourself in the world, and the only way to protect yourself and be okay in the world is to enter into this like persona of code switching. There's a really good quote specifically from The Guardian.
Nice.
Which was one of my favorite quotes that I found so far. In all of the research that we're doing, it says, when Black people can be killed for simply being themselves, code switching presents itself as a form of self-preservation. And I feel like you kind of see that in this film, in that like he's struggling a lot until Danny Glover turns to him and says, hey, have you considered, let me give you a tip.
Yeah.
Try using a white voice. And then he's like, people tell me I talk white all the time. What do you mean?
Yes, yes.
Like, and he's like, I'm not talking about Will Smith white.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like, and then he does his like very
he's just a
jarring
it's a white man speaking for him.
Yeah. Who is it? Patton Oswalt?
No.
For him?
I think for Lakeith it's man, I'm totally forgetting his name. But no, not Patton Oswalt for him.
I think Patton Oswalt was
one of them.
Danny Glover's.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Or I don't know. I think he was one of the white voices in there voicing over, like dubbing, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, I do think so. What I think is really interesting about that scene is that it's not just about race, too. He even says it. It's not just about having a white person voice, because he's like, you can do the nasal thing. It is about what that voice means, and that is it represents a power and a wealth and a life that person wants to have. And so like that part of it is very interesting to me. It's like it equates the white man voice with a certain level of power. It's like, you're going to go in and get in your Mercedes after you're done this call. And it's like marketing 101, right? Is that we present, like, we show happy people who are hot and cool with our services. So then you think, if I get these services, or I buy that phone, or I buy that thing, I'm going to be hot and cool too. And you're right. Patton Oswalt is Mr. Blank. The one where we never say his name. He looks like Hunger Games.
Oh, yes.
His voice. And then David Cross is Cassius. His white person voice.
I wasn't sure then who did Danny Glover's.
So it was Patton Oswalt. And it could have been, I mean, it could have been one of them too.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's literally like a white man speaking for them. And then I think Tessa Thompson also had a voiceover. She had a British lady, and I don't think it was her, because it wasn't. It was off sometimes.
It wasn't. I looked it up. I think it was Lily or something. Lily someone.
Oh, you know what's great? I just saw Rosario Dawson is the voice in the elevator. That's like I hope you haven't masturbated today. It's like awkward. Yeah. And I think so we'll go into code switching, but the language thing of like survival and like it not just being race thing, but also like a economic thing too, is I just saw a post about teachers and how they have to deal with like some teachers will try to educate or school young kids, especially young kids of color, from speaking in a certain way, like, which is like Ebonics, right? But that's a legitimate language, and it has adapted, and it has its own rules, and it has its own like structure and understanding.
Yeah.
Like, it is a language. It's just that we have equated that language with poverty or lower class, and not understanding that our own language is like the lower class version of what English ever was. Like, we have devolved into what we are now. So the fact that something like Ebonics or like that language, if you could, I'm sure there's a different name for it now, honestly, is honestly the future, because it's a simplified version. It gets to the point quicker, and that's what we have it devolved into. Like, we used to say like 1 million words to get to one sentence, that now equals like 5 words. Now we could say words good, like why many words when one word do good, like that, you know? And I think it was interesting to me that like there was teachers who were like, I don't correct them when they say like, I'm finna go get a pencil or whatever, because that is to a degree correct. They are saying what they want to say. Like, we understand what they're saying. And also the English language is all messed up to begin with. And one of the big reasons why when I like growing up, I used to be like, you know, very hard on grammar and would correct people all the time. And I had to come to terms with like, that's actually like a microaggression to like correct someone, because like, you know what they're saying, and they don't need to say it this specific way. Exactly. And it's actually really rude to correct them, and that it's okay if people get they're wrong. Like, you know, like if they get the grammar wrong, it's too bad. American language sucks. It's hard to learn.
Well, there's like, okay, so there's a lot to that. So in that, like, so for example, in Anglo-Saxon times, Pygmalion, the whole Henry Higgins picks up the like lowly flower girl who's like homeless and speaks with the Cockney accent. I don't know how to do it.
Hello.
And he's like, I'm gonna take this lady and teach her how to speak proper, all fancy times. Then she'll be able to get it like regular with upper scale society. And it's like that idea has very much transferred from, I guess, England to America, in that like we're very critical over like, because of the fact that it's been a very much like white space. That like all the professional settings are white spaces, because of the fact that there's very intentional and like endless years of oppression. That like basically we equate talking like code switching like white voice as what it is appropriate to be professional, as what is like appropriate of upper society. And like the way that Danny Glover describes it is like, he's saying that like you have to talk like what they wish they were. Like, like it's basically like they don't have that, but the reason that they trust you, who's talking like the epitome of what that is, like the exact opposite of talking like with any sort of blackness, is that is one, pushing that vernacular down even further, and then also you're just feeding into this idea that they need to keep pushing for that. It's like the whole middle class needs to keep pushing their poor people down so that they can get to the 1%. So it kind of, it's just like, it's been a very long-winded journey to that, and that like it's associated, as you said, with class, but also with race, specifically in America, because of the way that we demonize and oppress people and build countries off the backs of people.
Well, it just makes me think of all the times where people would say that Obama sounded educated. Like, he's like, what is that? Like, the educated equals white, right? Like, that's what it meant, because it was the, you know, like, how many times, like he said, people always say I talk white anyway. It's like, how many times have you had a black friend and they were told they talk white, and it just meant that they talked properly, or they used this very specific language because maybe that's where they grew up. Like, the fact that that is equated to whiteness is the problem, because we're also like, it is also on the other side equated to like wealth and status and being educated and being like higher than everyone else. So it's like on this level, it's like higher than everyone else, educated, blah, blah, equals whiteness. And it's like, that's the problem that we have here.
And then if you have like, you're not schools, they're trying to teach like etiquette classes, or like, I think it's important for people to know how to like have a job interview, but like their systems in place should not be as discriminatory as they are, in that like you have to talk a certain way to get a job. You have to basically use your white voice, which is just one, basically saying that, like, to be Black, you have to talk one way.
Yeah.
And to be white, you have to talk one way. And if you talk any way different, like, there's something wrong with that. And then, like, it's just the whole time.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean, it's just like, you know, how with the hiring process, like, one, the fact that it's not until recently that we, like, made it illegal for you to tell Black women or Black people to do their hair a specific way, and it was always a white way, right? Like, you know, pressing it, like, you couldn't wear free like fro, like you can wear locks, you can like, that was like looked down upon. So we're changing that narrative, but also like names too, like that's a big thing. There's so many times that if you have a specific like Black scene name, it is just thrown in the trash, like you don't even get a chance. So it's like you have to get a name like David or something. It's a reason why I, like, when I was making my emails when I was becoming an adult, I was like, should I take up my actual name, which is Gabrielle, or should I keep Gabe like I usually do? And I stuck with Gabe because I was like, odds are someone's going to accidentally get me an interview.
Because they think you're a man.
Because they're going to think I'm a dude. Like 100%. And how many times did that happen? Let me tell you, quite a lot. I get it all the time that people think I'm a man, and they treat me differently in those emails. Yeah. Yeah. It happens quite a lot. And so there's so many levels to that where it is all about like what we value as being professional and what we value as the something to aspire to, which happens to inherently not be anything Black. Yeah. Right. And so like, that's what he's kind of fighting against. So that's one of the things is like where we have this intersectionality of, you know, our classism that in America just inherently mixes with our racism in our structure. It comes hand in hand because our classism is built on race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's 100%. And it's one, really gross. Two, linguistics is fascinating. If you don't know anything about linguistics, it's like, I took one class in college. Gabe, you also took one class in college. It's just like the way that we develop language and associate trust specifically with a way of speaking, a dialect, the words that we choose, it's inherently defines like how we trust. Specifically, like so when you are in Philly, you say water, you say John, you say, you know, you do not say water. You know, you make sure that you say, like, because that helps people trust you. Yeah. Like, honestly, it's very real. Yeah. Like, it is a human adaptation to the environment that you're in. Like, I know when I was younger, whenever I would go visit, like, family, if they were from different parts of the country, I would totally change. By the time I got home, I was speaking entirely differently to the point where my mom was so confused. She'd be like, you never said that word that way. Where did your T's go? Yeah. Why don't you say T's anymore? And I was just like, I don't know. I was there for a weekend. I felt really uncomfortable. So my only way of adapting is to change the way that I speak so that they are nicer to me. I don't know. Like, it's just like very real. It's a human adaptive thing to do. Where it's dangerous is when we're demonizing one specific group of people so much that anything that resembles or sounds like that group is put in a deplorable category. Yeah. I have a similar situation in that like I said in the beginning of this podcast, I was born in Massachusetts, and so I have a lot of family from Boston. My mom has the accent every now and again. It's not as strong when you talk
as
to her, it comes out sometimes.
When I talk to my mom or talk to any family, like I have a cousin who's just lived there her whole life, and if I talk to her for 5 minutes, all of a sudden I'm like, we need to get in the car, and I'll just, and also when I'm babysitting or angry, it also comes out, which is kind of funny, because I guess like both of those things are related to my family, babies and anger. But yeah, I can literally, if I bump into someone in the store, I almost said store, bump into someone in the store and they have a Boston accent, it takes all of me to not do it because I'm so used to being like, yeah, it's wicked awesome. And like, yeah, it's like, yeah, let's go get a coffee later and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like there. And I can't even watch a video. And if someone has it, I'm on it. Cause it's like, yeah, you're adapting. And it's like, I lived in Massachusetts a total of like 4 years of my life, like 3 when I was a child and 1 when I was still a child. And I can still do it because of the people I've been around. And even like when I go down south to visit my family now in South Carolina, I'll come back with a little bit of a country twang all of a sudden. And I'm like, why in the world I got this now?
Yeah. And it's like, it's yourself plus like who you are already plus that on a layer on top. Like I know when I visit my Indiana family, they have like a little bit of like country accents.
Yeah.
And then I'll have that, but like mixed in with my Philadelphia. Sometimes I just say words that are like Minnesotan.
Yeah,
and I'm not from there, and that makes no sense. And I attribute it to the fact that my mom was from New York. She said chocolate. She said like awesome. You had that aw sound.
Yeah.
And then that's like kind of also Jersey mixed in with Philadelphia, mixed in with all the other places that I've been.
Some things you say weird, and I'm always like, why do you say it like that? That's so weird. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely like those those things. Oh, or like my mother is very good at code switching a little bit in regards to people who speak English as a second language, because she speaks Spanish fluently and has interacted with a lot of people who speak a different language primarily. And so she will take on a way of speaking that I always notice where it's a simpler version, where she doesn't add any floral text to it. Like she simplifies it. She cuts it down to the basics so that person can understand. Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, it kind of feels like you're dumbing it down, but you're not, because you're just making, like, that person is trying to learn. And they know a lot of words in their own language. They're just learning these ones. Like, they're probably incredibly intelligent, like way smarter than you. Well, that's
also a thing that like we associate different vernaculars or languages just because they're not our version of English as something that means people are less intelligent. So immigration. Yeah. Anyone who speaks Spanish, where I was like, lots of people are very are prejudiced against them and basically will act like they're stupid, like they don't know stuff, like they were an engineer or a doctor or like, you know, just like very intelligent people, and they're even more intelligent because they're now speaking 2 languages plus code switching plus all these other things plus an entire like, and we're just we're like selves in America.
You couldn't say that correctly.
Like, I took French in high school, but like I don't remember how to say any of it. But you know, it's fine. Like that guy, he's dumb because he doesn't know how to speak English real good.
Yeah, that's like any other country. They learn English as a second language like pretty well, and then we're here in America like habla español.
And we'll say any language after you have passed puberty is extremely hard to learn. There's so much science behind that, where if you have not learned like the intro stages to another language before puberty, your brain has less like it is more formed, so it's a lot harder for you to learn additional languages. So someone who is in their adult life coming to this country, learning a different language and then just speaking and doing a really good job of it, they're a very intelligent person because they're fighting the chemicals in their brain who are like, we have learned our things, we're done now. Yeah. Because it's plastic, the brain is plastic. We learned.
But also like with your speech too, the fact that sometimes your mouth has learned a specific way of speaking. So there's certain sounds that they just cannot make. And so then instead we make memes and stupid jokes about entire races of people because they can't say our word correctly. And it's like, they literally cannot, their mouth cannot do that sound. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think it works.
The epitome of what America and American capitalism is loud and ignorant. The more loud and more ignorant we are, the better.
Yes. So that was our rant about code switching.
Yeah. And I mean, like, Boo Riley has a lot of really good things to say about, like, not like positive things, but like a lot of really like interesting.
He does it well.
Yeah, he does it well. You know, he talks about the experience and what it means and what he's trying to convey in the film extremely well. Like, he really just kind of goes into like why people accept whiteness, like the speaking in a white voice as what it is in terms of the professional world, and then also like why he portrayed it that way and why he dubbed the character. You know, it's just like there's lots of really interesing articles about it.
Yeah, there's so much to say. One thing I wanted to talk about was because I think it's so interesting is the have a Coke meme. So there's like a scene. So there's one I made a remark to Kat where I was like, I wish that talking about unions didn't have to seem so like
conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, like conspiratorial. Like there have to be like secretive.
Yeah.
And that's America for you. Like that's what we do. You like unions have to kind of be formed outside, and then like, and America's built on unions. Like that's what we do. Like that's how we get anything done.
Well, the right thing has to be a secret. When you think about like Watergate and Nixon, like
always
you had to meet the guy in the abandoned parking garage with the different voice for the truth to get out. Yeah, instead of people just being good people
Snowden having
and
to hide
owning
in
their
Tokyo.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Continue, sorry.
Yeah, no, but 100%. So, like, I was like, that's sad. But in this film, we have a union that is being formed. We have a strike that is happening, and Cassius is crossing the picket line, and he is a what is it called? What's the term?
When they cross the picket line?
Yeah, when you're working for them. When you're not supposed to. We'll come back to that word. But
someone's yelling it at us, like, from the ether.
From the internet. Yeah. Sorry. I can't remember what it is called. I'm gonna do a little quick
Googles.
Picket. Scab. That's what it's called. I didn't have to type a scab. He's being a scab. And as he's trying to cross and they're, helping him out, he gets hit with a Pepsi can. Is it Pepsi or Coke? A Coke can.
I think it was a Coke can in this.
And it said, smile and have a Coke, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. The reason we think Pepsi is because of the Kendall Jenner ad.
Yes.
Where she hands the Coke or
to the police officer.
Pepsi to the police officer, being like, "This is
I fixed
Black Lives Matter."
Yeah, so
look at me, all my money.
All the time.
We just have to give them soda to make them stop brutalizing the populace.
So tone deaf.
Yep.
And, why would you trust her? We could do a whole episode on the horrors of Kendall Jenner.
Just the Kardashians and the Jenner situation. Yeah.
We're going to talk about,
Continue.
Anyway.
Yep.
So there's like that scene where it gets thrown, and so a Coke gets thrown at his head, and the woman who throws it at him, she says, like, smile and have a Coke. And she becomes this meme internet sensation. She's on a YouTube video. They do this really comical recreation, and it replays. And it's like, we've seen that. We've seen those videos. It's not far. And we've also seen those jokes about those videos.
Yeah.
But what I think is really interesting about that is that it doesn't stop there. It didn't stop at, like, the joke is that he became a meme and that his pain became a meme. It's that it took another step and made her sell out. And so then she, like, in the same breath that they're like, look at what happened to the scab. He got hit in the head. What an idiot. Also, she now works for Coke. And now she is profiting off of that. Like, she's doing the same thing he did. She's a scab too.
Yeah.
And so there's, like, this kind of idea where we not we, but, like, they subvert and, like, take the power from a movement by trying to, like, commodify it. And so, like, it reminded me of the first episode of Black Mirror. So that's the one where they're doing the games, and he plays the games, and the girl he loves from Downton Abbey is she becomes a singer. And she wins, but then she becomes, like, a porn star, and she ends up being sex trafficked, and it's like this whole thing. And so he's heartbroken because he's like, the woman I love has been destroyed by the system because we, are using humans. And so he goes on that rant, and you think, like, oh, he's breaking down the system, he's fighting back against it, he's being empowered. And then the whole rest of the end is that he goes on these panels and he has a show where he's just doing that. Like, he's on a pedestal and he cries and whines about things, but he is the tool of the same company. Like, he's just, they have taken it, and by kind of putting it under them and making him just talk
they
for
get
no
the power
reason. They get the power
over
and
the movement.
Yes. And to me it resembles, like, these very, pointless gestures that, like, I get, why you're doing it, and there's parts of it that you can be like, thanks, right? But you're distracting from the actual movement and the actual things that we want, which is change. So it's like, I don't know, painting Black Lives Matter on a street instead of changing the actual laws that are harming those very people who walk those streets. Like, that's nice. Love art, love installation. Like, maybe if it was done by the people, love it, right? But you're like, it's like when
because you're trying to pacify us.
Yeah, well, it's like when Congress was kneeling, they were doing the Kaepernick. It was like, that's so rude, because we're kneeling so that you will pay attention and do changes. We're not kneeling so you also kneel. That's performative. Yeah. That's literally not the point. Like, do something. Like, you're clearly seeing that we're kneeling. You're clearly seeing we need help. So now do something. Instead, they're taking it from us and taking that power from us and making it their own, which is what happens in this. Like, he says, like, I need you to infiltrate this thing. I want you to be our MLK Jr., but for us. So you're going to stage a rebellion, but it's not a real rebellion because we own it. That's what happens all the time.
Yeah. Well, because it's anybody who's willing to play ball will be put up and will say the palatable version of what the rich white people can handle. And then everyone else is killed or fired or thrown away or demonized publicly.
Or turned into something that will obey.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. Yeah. So yeah, it's just like anyone who's not willing to play ball, anyone who's not willing to take the under the table or just like be someone who, in this instance, like who can be in both worlds. So knows how to do white voice and, you know, whatever their regular vernacular is. Like who can exist in both and can move. The whole thing is that he's saying like, well, you can appeal to them. Yeah. It's like you are that in like the inner like you can do that.
You're inside man.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like if you're not willing to take that though, what is the thing that happens to you? Yeah. You get your history erased. You get murdered. You're just erased from the narrative. Like that's basically the entire way that people like take over countries and stuff like that. They destroy everything that was before. Anyone who's not willing to cave and like play ball or do what is asked in terms of like the thing that will sustain what has already happened and will never end until we destroy the train because it's going to keep going on its own, which we see a lot in the film, is that just, like it's, if you're not willing to play ball, you're taken out.
Yeah, they changed it. I mean, it's like with the civil rights movement, right? Like we only ever hear about MLK, but there's others out there who were doing things. They were just doing it not the way that they wanted you to know that happened, right? Like they don't want to know about the violence. They don't want to know about the protests. They don't want to know that we are essentially doing the same thing, different day, because they want you to kind of idolize that. So they've like stole the identity of MLK, right? They stole that movement and are using it to combat our current movement. And that's just like that's like literally what they're wanting to do in this film, which is interesting to think like, 2018. And now we're like looking at it like,
Well, one thing really interesting. So sorry.
No, good.
So Boots Riley talked about how he wrote the screenplay for this in 2012 and then submitted it in 2014. And it was made in 2018. And in an interview, he was asked, did you change it? Like, was there anything you felt like you had to change to make it relevant for today? And he was like, no, not really. I mean, it's all the same stuff. Yeah. We're erasing the fact that racism exists and we're trying to make it seem like we're post civil rights movement, we're post slavery, we're post this. It's like, no, but I mean, nothing's changed.
Yeah, it's still here. Yeah.
It's just under a new name. It's under a new mask. It's presented differently or more creatively, or honestly, we're so overwhelmed by everything that's wrong that we don't know what to do. So we pretend that it's not happening.
Yeah.
Which is another great quote from the movie.
Yeah.
By Squeeze.
Yes. Yeah. And I think there's so much that happens in this film, like we said, like even just the existence of Worry Free, which is this company that's owned by Armie Hammer. His real name is just more fun. But Steve Lift. He's a white guy who owns things. But what happens is people sign up for a lifetime of servitude, but they get room and board. They get to live in this place. They get food. They're housed. It's great. And it reminded me of a Margaret Atwood book, The Heart Goes Last, which was where they essentially, after the stock market crash, the 2008 one, 2008? No. 2003? One with Bush. That one. When our economy was falling. Right after that.
It's probably 2003 because 2001 was...
Yeah, so 2003. Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Anyway, we're millennials.
Sorry.
We know it's honestly the economy has always been trash my entire life. I don't know a time when it wasn't.
There has never been a time where anything has been okay for us to become adults and have jobs. It's fine. Anyway, it's not, but
it's perpetually bad. But she's an older woman, so she knows what's up, Margaret Atwood. But she read this book where it was right after that, so people lost their homes, they lost like their jobs, and so they changed some prisons, and so they made it like you can sign up to essentially be in prison. You will get room and board, you'll get food and that, you'll work, and then when you get out, like you will have like a house. Like we're essentially like, you just have to give us a few years of your life for this minuscule payment for labor, and you will then be free, right? And so, and there's so much more to it in that book. It's a great book. I highly recommend The Heart Goes Last. I love Margaret Atwood. I saw her at a free library talk, and I was like, I thought I loved her before. I love her so much. She's great. And that's what it makes me think of, because honestly, our prison system works on and profits off of the labor of those in there. So they are working for pennies, right? And they are forced to do so. Like they don't get a choice. This isn't a decision. This is what they have to do. And it is servitude. It is a version of slave labor, and we have normalized it. And so like, you know, people are cleaning up the sides, making like all kinds of, like, I know people who've been in jail and have to do those things. And it's like, that's not the, like, no one signed up for that. Like, they're not free labor. That's not what that is. Like, they're supposed to be fixing themselves and learning and becoming better and being rehabilitated.
I mean, none of it's about rehabilitated. That, like, okay, so for example, when they see us, every single time a person of color has been basically put into prison under this deal, this guy, or taking advantage of children, or taking advantage of people who maybe don't know their rights, or honestly making it seem like that's the better option. It's like, you're not giving those people a choice. Half of them are innocent. Like, what are you talking about? You have petty drug crimes as like life sentences. Yeah. I mean...
Well, it's like Kids for Cash, the documentary about what happened in Pennsylvania, because we have for-profit prisons and we had for-profit juvenile detention centers. And so because of that, we needed to fill them up. They don't make money unless they're full. And so they started locking up kids just for really, really small things, or things that were like ridiculous. There's one where these parents bought a bike from a local neighborhood kid, but that bike had been stolen, but the cops saw the kid on it. And they never brought in the parents. They trick everyone to signing off that it's okay, and like they never get to see their parents. Parents never get to see the kids. The kids are just put away and lose their entire life. But they don't even know how to do that. They're being told this is the only way to do it. And when you're raised in a system where you think that when they're like, oh, well, you're going to ask for a lawyer? Do you have something to hide? As if that's not your actual constitutional right, is to have a lawyer. Like, it does not make you guilty to act upon your constitutional rights. Like, you immediately call for a lawyer because they're sneaky and they're going to twist everything you say.
Yeah, there's no trustworthy, like, their whole job is not to prove you innocent or innocent until proven guilty. Like, it is,
you are guilty. They need to fill those spaces.
Yeah, you need to be in there. They don't care how it happens. They're not your friend. It's super gross.
Yeah. We lead the world in incarcerated people, and that's because it is ingrained in our economy as well. Like, we do profit from their suffering, and by keeping them in there, like, we are suppressing entire groups of people by not allowing them to do that. And it's like, we also remove their right to vote and make a difference in this country as well. So it's like, we level it up. Like, you can't even, like, once you're in there, you're just done. And that's why we have recidivism rates that are like skyrocketed, like unlike any other place, because that's what we do. It's new slavery.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%.
Swords, yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow, there's just so much to talk about. I feel like there's still so much more to say. A little tidbit from TheVerge.com. Worry-free is a parody of WeWork living spaces and Amazon productivity standards. So it's a fun fact. Do you remember our friend Jeff Bezos?
Ugh. And by friend, you mean my arch nemesis, and I will take him down.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's really gross. I mean, if we're not literally prisoners or enslaved through the industrial prison complex, we're doing so through capitalism. And it's like a system that benefits very few and is made out to seem like it benefits lots of people, but it just actively hurts people. No one wins.
Yeah.
If you get to the top, you sell your soul.
Yeah. Yeah, there are no good billionaires. There's no good billionaire. You can't be a good person and a billionaire. That does not add up. You can't. There's no way. Like, if we...
Because you don't need billions of dollars. No human should have billions of dollars. Yeah. You accepting billions of dollars makes you irrelevant in terms of what your morality is, unless you have given all of it away to literally everyone.
But to get there, to get to the billions, means you have hurt and you have victimized and you have gravely injured people. Like, that's how you get there. Like, you are profiting off of the pain of groups of people. Like, that's the only way you can get up there. There's no good way to do that. Like, to profit off of the hard work of these lower income people, right? Yeah. And it's like, if we taxed Jeff Bezos, it's like the smallest fraction, right? Like, if we taxed him honestly, we could actually have free college, the way that Bernie Sanders preaches about it. We could have that, honestly. Yeah. And he wouldn't even notice it was gone. The fact, I think that coronavirus and this pandemic has shown the extent of the problems of our capitalistic society, and it has really revealed it to a lot of people who didn't see it, because we are very clear in our actions, in the fact that we open too early as this country and are jeopardizing the lives of our essential workers, quotation, right? It's their lives are
essential right now,
right? Yeah,
because we need them.
Yeah, they were always it revealed that our whole country is it's
like they need to get better jobs. Just kidding. No, we need them to do those jobs. We need them. What if this though?
Yeah.
It's the whole thing.
Instead of valuing those people and those jobs and, holding them up to higher standard, giving them the support and the money that they need and deserve. There's what does Jeff Bezos do at all in this country? Nothing. He's done nothing. And how many of his employees suffer? How many of them are sick or dead because he kept going, right? And they got a hit because of the blackout. So not buying from Amazon, they got hit, and they continue to do so because people are finally seeing this is a problem and this is toxic, and he is a villain. He is honestly Lex Luthor, he is the villain that we're there's no way around it. And that because we idolize wealth and billionaires and that status. And that's exactly what's happening here. He is able to put on his blinders and not see that he's literally selling slave labor and bombs, and he's
Cassius. We're talking about. We're back to the film.
Yeah. As a telemarketer, as a power caller, he's literally selling it. And I think it's crazy because in one scene when he's talking to Detroit, his girlfriend Tessa Thompson, she says what are you selling? And he changes the topic. And then later, after they show the sequence of their wealth changing, and then they're in the house, and now they're in their apartment, and it's all wealthy and nice. She says it. She already knows. She says, you're selling labor, but she's also in it. She is also performative. People think that she's one of the heroes of it because she's fighting against them, but she bounces because it's awkward to be with him and to be with the people on strike. And she puts on that show and performance, she's being performative as well. And she wears these earrings, she wears these statements, but she's not doing anything. And when she has a direct line into the trauma, she still doesn't do anything. And so she's now I can't do this. I'm done. I have to go. Because it's it looks bad. Was really what the point was. And so I think it's so much in there, right? We are trained to ignore the pain and trauma of the other because we're fine. And we know that we're risking our fine if we try to acknowledge that or change that.
Yeah. So that's a perfect segue into the quote by Squeeze.
Yes.
When Cassius and Squeeze and the other gentleman who I loved, what was his name?
I forget.
He was great. He was just really fun and said all the great things in the film. He was hilarious.
Yes.
But Squeeze goes on to say to Cassius, if you get shown a problem, but you have no idea how to control it, then you just decide to get used to the problem, which is what I feel Sal. Oh, yeah. His name was Sal. You're right. So, yeah, we just get used to the problem. It's we know Amazon is doing what it's doing, but it's so convenient, 2-day shipping. So you can get things delivered same day from Whole Foods. It
scares me.
Literally, we know that it's evil, but it's convenient. We don't want to make that sacrifice. We don't want to inconvenience ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's just like, the reality is, for these things to change, everyone's going to need to feel really uncomfortable and need to feel a lot of inconvenience, need to sit in that. And it's, what's rude is that it shouldn't have to be everybody who's already inconvenienced all the time anyway. Yeah. It is at the hands and the job of people who have been basking in that convenience, who have been benefiting from it, to be like, hey, just like, I literally wrote a whole thing. It's like, if no one else around me can feel the sun, I don't want to feel the sun. Like, we all need to just accept that, like, we need to be with other people. Like, this is not all about us. It's like one of our experience, but we need to be out there and like do something. Yeah. Not just say it, not just be like, oh, Amazon's bad. Yeah. But I'm going to use, what's it called? Audible, or like the Fresh, the thing that delivers the food Amazon to your house. Fresh, yeah. And it's just like, yeah, you just have to do really inconvenient things. And we see, like, kind of in the film also, like, when, I don't know how much more time.
Not much, but
yeah. So specifically when he's at the big guy's house. Steve Lift. Yes. When he's at his house and they make him rap.
Mm-hmm. They make him perform what they imagine a Black person is.
Yeah.
Even though he's like, I can't do that.
Yeah, he's like actively saying like, no, it's not, like, no. Like,
I enjoy that he says, I can listen to, like, I have the ability to listen to, like, he says that, like, I have a right to that music, but I cannot perform that music. And I thought that was a great line, because it wasn't like he was essentially being like, you guys can't even appreciate, like, you don't even have the right to enjoy it. But like, that's all I have. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
But then when he's rapping, like, when they finally like push him to it, and then he says words that I am no way allowed to say.
Don't need to.
You don't need to.
And that's the whole joke.
Yeah. And that he starts it.
And then they get now the power to do that.
And they don't stop. Like, they just keep going. And no matter what he would even try to do, there's no stopping it. And I think we like see that with the Coke can. We see that with the rap. We see that where it's like, once it is out there, that
they
it's
take
very,
it from him.
Yeah. It's like commoditized. How did you say it?
Commodified.
It is like taken out, like the...
It's co-opted.
It's just basically like the continuation of it is out of control. Yeah. Like, it's not able to be stopped by one person at that point. And that it kind of stacks and spirals, and the film does a really good job at like expressing how that happens. And then also, like, specifically just with social media, how stuff takes on a life of its own.
Or media itself, like the fact that their show that they watch was people just getting beat up, and like how we kind of idolize violence in that way too. Like, we're entertained by violence, but it also, like, going back to capitalism, it just makes me remember, or reminds me of makes me remember our episode on classism in Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer, in that the real villains of it are the middle train, and that was the middle class, because they have the power to lift the people below them, but they have the ignorance to not acknowledge that, or to be afraid to acknowledge it because it jeopardizes their happiness. And so they buy into the propaganda and the information that they're being told from by the front of the train, and then having this perceived idea of the lower class being below them and being deserving of that pain. Yeah. And so it's just that the fact that the majority is the middle class, is the people in the center who can make the change, right? And then instead they're like idolizing and fantasizing about going higher, and they can't go higher if they help those below them. Because you can't go higher if there's no higher, right? Like, you can't be up the ladder if there's no ladder and we're all on equal ground. Like, that's the whole thing. And so I think, like, when in this film there is the strike, and they're, putting down their phones, they said they're not going to call anymore, and he's in there and he's ready, and he was empowered by this idea of like, okay, yeah, you can fire me, but you can't take anything else from me. Like, I will find another job. I'll do this. And that would have been fine. that's a reality he is used to. That's a reality that he had built up and expected to have to face. And then when he's confronted with, actually, we want to promote you and we want you to, like, you have the stuff. You're different. You can do it. You're better than them out there. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. You're going to go up. And then even like the pep talks in the elevator, right? Like empowering them, like, you're so supple and phenomenal and we want to have your babies.
Yeah.
And all that nonsense, right? Is because like that's what they have to feed them. Like you have to feel like you are the best. Like you are better than everything else. You're superior so that you can justify within yourself harming those people. And you can disconnect from it so fully because it's like, well, that's going to happen to them anyway. And I think this film does such a great job of that.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about so many different things and not even like, but that's what this film is like trying to make you do. It wants you to see this stuff and go, wow, that, like even just one line, like there's, so Detroit has these really amazing earrings, which if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing some, and they're all statement pieces. And she has one that is these gold, it's a man in the electric chair and they're gold. It's like, oh my God. But they make jokes to her. They say like, oh, I didn't know your ancestors were on your earrings too or something, right? And it's like she is putting in art and wearing and like, again, performing this thing. But she like laughs it off and she laughs off this like trauma. But that in itself was a whole conversation that we just passed by. It's like, just like when he comes in and she says, what this is, I made Africa. Africa is big. That's why they are big. It is an entire, like it's not a country. Just America is not a country, right? And so like she's saying Africa is big and it is the start of capitalism. And she's going on this whole rant and then we, like us and Cassius are not listening, right? And it just keeps happening. There's so many things that are right on the peripheral and it's like in your face, like he's telling you with everything he does, he's telling you, and he accompanies with great like visuals and with great acting and dialogue and situations. And it's just like all encompassing. And I think this is like, it takes a really crazy wacky turn that I didn't expect, but I appreciated it.
Yeah.
Because it was absurd, but at the same time, it took it serious.
Yeah.
And that was so great. This is definitely like one of my favorite films ever, and I think more people should watch it.
I want to watch it a few times, like honestly, just because I feel like I want to make sure I see every single piece of what was happening.
Yeah, there's so many things, and again, we could spend hours talking about the different things, or we could do different episodes where it's just like, and now we'll talk about
if anyone wants to let us know, like, please.
Yeah, if you're interested, or if you have any recommendations of what to watch or read or listen to for our social horror kind of series that we're doing, we already had one recommendation from a fan on Twitter, so we're looking forward to kind of talking about that one, and maybe that'll happen next week, I think. We'll see how it goes. And that's a Twitter user at Hoop Fiasco, who's a new like fan of ours who's been like kind of shouting us out and supporting us, and we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And just like that user, if you want to communicate with us about anything, if you want to suggest that we watch something, or if you think we could have talked about a different thing, or you want to comment below or send us an email at theghouls@gmail.com. Tweet at us, Instagram. Like, we're here, we're listening, and we appreciate everything that you say and taking out the time. And we want to, make sure that we're being conscious of all voices too. So if we miss something, or if you're like, oh, well, did you know? We want to know. Yeah. Well, for this one, we know we missed some stuff because there's a lot. There's too mumuch. We took so many pages of notes, but there was no way in the world that an hour's time was enough time. Yeah, no. And we'll definitely do this again sometime. I'm sure of it. Because, like I said, it came up a few times. It came up a few times on my list where I was like, we could do it for this, we could do it for that, or we could do it for this. So it'll come back. And, So, I hope you enjoy it. That's mostly what I have to say. We're always going to be yelling about things. It's A+. We're regurgitating some of the same knowledge. But I hope you learned a bit about code switching and about not being a grammar Nazi, essentially. Yeah. That's a microaggression. Don't do it, dog. Yeah. And also, we just skimmed the surface of even that, so
do your research. If this is like the catalyst to which you go learn some stuff, please do.
Yeah. Yes. And as always, we'll put some links in our description here on YouTube, and you can help support some of the things happening. So, yeah.
Don't get married. They'll eat your kids.
I once said I love you.
I love you too.
I love you. Yeah. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah. You know.